we are super excited again to welcome you all to our event this evening. This is an opportunity to learn about Diwali, which is, you'll hear all about it tonight. We're super excited for our speaker that we have, Dr. Anita Joshi. She is here representing the Hindu Temple of Central Indiana. And so we're so excited to have her tonight. If you give me just a second, I'll tell you a little bit about her. She was born and raised in New Jersey and attended the University of Connecticut Medical School, where she met her husband, Arionne Jane, MD. Dr. Joshi currently practices general pediatrics in Crawfordsville, Indiana. She chaired the diversity committee at the Orchard School and served on the founding board of the Riley Women's Fund and served as grants chair on the board of the Women's Fund of Central Indiana. She currently serves as the BLT vice chair at Brebeuf Jesuit Preparatory School and was awarded the Heart of Brebeuf Award for her service on the school's COVID medical task force. Dr. Joshi is also the current BLT vice chair for Patchwork Indy, a nonprofit working with refugees and immigrants and advocating for safe housing. She has served for many years as the Hindu representative at the Center for Interfaith Cooperation in Indianapolis. She has spoken at many universities and nonprofit organizations representing the Hindu Temple of Central Indiana. Dr. Joshi is the Community Relations Liaison for HTCI. Having been born and raised in the U.S., Dr. Joshi has a deep personal understanding of the experiences Hindu children face growing up balancing two cultures. We are truly, truly privileged to hear from her tonight. She's going to talk to us about Hindu faith tradition and certainly about Diwali. So without further ado, I introduce to you Dr. Anita Joshi. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I want this to be an opportunity for everybody to learn and also an opportunity if we need to have some question and answer and an opportunity to engage more fully. So I'm going to start with a presentation because the holiday of Diwali is very special to me as a Hindu, but it is important, I think, for those who may know nothing about Hinduism to have at least a basic understanding of the faith, right? It's much easier to explain Christmas if you have a basic understanding of Christianity. Similarly, it's easier to explain Diwali if you have a basic understanding of Hinduism. So we're going to start with that. And with that, I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. And so really what I'm going to do is a very brief introduction to Hinduism. And Hinduism is unique in many ways. It really does have what I would describe as pluralism at its core. Hinduism begins with one of our ancient texts, the Rig Veda, which is the first of the Vedas. And the first line of the text, well, first and second line is Ekam Sat Vipra Bahoda Vedanti. And that translates to the truth is one and the wise know it by many names. So the Hindu understanding of greetings and namaste, which also greets the divine in one another, is an understanding that all rivers lead to the same ocean, and that all people are imbued with the ability to find their path that connects them best to divinity. Hinduism is an ancient faith dating back between 2500 to 5000 BC. In fact, it's the oldest faith still in practice today. 1 in 6 people on earth are Hindu. So it's the third largest religion in the world, and many people don't realize that. And the statistics, which are now old, we're waiting for the newest census that just occurred, but state there are about 1.2 million Hindus living in the United States. So it's likely that you will meet someone who is of the Hindu faith during your time at UIndy. So Hinduism is unique in that it has a few different qualities. There is no exact starting date for Hinduism. So we date it back archaeologically to that 5,000 to 2,500 BC. But, we call it Sanatana Dharma, which basically means it's an eternal path or an eternal faith. There is no one founder for Hinduism. So there is no one prophet that we recognize or one starting point. And it has no one text. I mentioned to you the Rig Veda, but there are actually 4 Vedas. That is the first. And there are many other religious texts in Hinduism that we learn from. Hinduism is also unique in that it has no centralized organizing body. So there is no pope in Rome. There is no council that, determines what is the Hindu stance on this. The understanding is developed from the reading of the scriptures and from the conversations and discussions amongst Hindus in a community. So I'm going to talk about just some basic beliefs. One of the biggest misconceptions in the West is that Hinduism is a polytheistic religion. And you can see even depicted here why people would think that. However, it is not true. Hinduism is in fact a monotheistic religion with what I would describe as polytheistic overtones. And what that really means is we believe in one God, one supreme being, one ultimate truth from which all other things manifest. And so all of the incarnations, if you will, of that one divine represent certain qualities of that divine. And so really that's important to understand when you come to a Hindu temple or you visit, is that each of those individual deities is in fact connected to the one, which we often refer to as Brahman. So this one God can be worshipped in many forms. Hinduism is one of the only faiths in which the feminine is worshipped. And so we have goddesses that we'll talk about actually that pertain to the festival that we're talking about today. And Hindus believe, as we said, that everyone has a unique path to the one universal truth. So the central principles are those that words you may have heard, karma, which everybody seems to think they know what that means, but we'll talk about that a little bit, dharma, reincarnation, and moksha. And so karma really just means action. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be neutral, but it's action. So it's really energy, and it is the energy that surrounds us. So when I interact with someone and I have a positive interaction, that's positive energy, and a negative interaction may be negative energy. And our lives are spent doing that. And we believe that as Hindus, we must strive to act selflessly for the welfare of the planet, for the welfare of other people, and also without attachment to the results of our actions. And thereby, we will advance our spiritual growth. The concept of dharma is moving along that path of using those positive actions, acting selflessly, and doing it in a way that is non-injurious, that is truthful, that controls the senses and conveys a purity of mind and body. And so if those things are done with that selfless interest, they are considered to move you along the path. Reincarnation is an important concept in Hinduism because energy is never created or destroyed. And so for Hindus, it is simply a cycle of energy appearing and then manifesting and then reappearing. And so the soul, or the thing that makes me me, is immortal. It has always been here, it will always be here, and it may be reborn again. And so through the process that we learn in our lives of trying to engage in this positive energy, we decrease the negative energy, and we ultimately hope to realize this ultimate truth and to gain an understanding of the divine and to join with that one divine. So that is the ultimate goal, is moksha. It is really attained when you've overcome ignorance and no longer have any desire, and that you can now sort of be liberated from this cycle of birth and suffering and death and rebirth. So that kind of helps to talk about some basics. I said earlier that there are many sacred texts in Hinduism, And we're going to concentrate on one of those sacred texts today because it is relevant to the celebration of Diwali. But the Vedas were first written down because they were passed on in oral tradition prior to that time. In 1200 BC is the earliest we can find of a written copy of the Vedas. The Upanishads are many, many texts that were written between 800 and 1000 BC. The Mahabharata, which contains the Bhagavad Gita, which the Gita is probably the best known of all the sacred texts, was written in 700 BC. And then the epic Ramayana, which we will talk about today, was written in 500 BC. And so let me move ahead. The Ramayana, and this is kind of a rough picture because it's not as clear as I wanted it to be, is the story of King Rama, and it figures in the celebration of Diwali, as we will talk about today. So what is Diwali? So Diwali is commonly known as the Festival of Lights. Hindus follow a lunar calendar, very much like the Jewish calendar. And so our holidays also coincide oftentimes with many Jewish holidays. For example, we are going to begin the celebration of Navratri on Monday. And so this really begins the opening of our holiday season. And Diwali is celebrated in October of November, and it's recognized also to be the beginning of the new year for many Hindus. It's probably the most widely celebrated of all the Hindu festivals. And as you can see from the beautiful lights and colors, it is really a lot of fun to celebrate it. So the word Diwali comes from the Sanskrit word Deepavali, which Deepa is lamps and Avali is a row. So it is basically the lighting of a row of lamps. And the light for Hindus symbolizes this idea of good triumphing over evil, and knowledge triumphing over ignorance. So the light dispelling the darkness. And that's common in many cultures, but especially celebrated during this Hindu holiday. It's not only celebrated by Hindus, and I'm just going to briefly talk about this, but these pictures are actually from different cities in India in which the celebration of Diwali occurs in all cities. And it's really an amazing time to be there. The Sikhs also celebrate Diwali, and they call it Bandi Chor Divas, which means the release day. It's the celebration of the release of the sixth Guru from Gwalior Fort. And what's notable about this day is that the king wanted to release the Guru on the Diwali day, but he agreed only to go if he could take the 52 Hindu kings who were also imprisoned with him when he was released. And so there is a great story that goes on about how he was able to do that and the celebration of victory of the goodness and the light of that release of those unjustly held prisoners. The Jains celebrate Diwali as the day that Mahavira, or the 24th of the 24 Tirthankaras, attained enlightenment and attained moksha. And so they celebrated still with a lot of light, again, because you are ascending out of the darkness. So the celebration of light is common to all of these. And the last are in Nepal. The Newar Buddhists also celebrate Diwali and see it as a time of renewal and a time of, again, light. So that's really the common theme. It's not just celebrated in India. It's celebrated in Malaysia and Singapore and Indonesia and Fiji and a number of other countries, but I just had pictures of a few of them for you this evening. So Diwali is actually celebrated over 5 days. And it is amazing because when we celebrate festivals in India and we celebrate festivals together in Hindu homes, we want to drag out the celebrations as long as possible. Weddings last 3 days, everything is multiple days. And for any of you in the audience who may be Hindu, you know how this goes, or even Indian and non-Hindu, we like our holidays. So Diwali each day has a specific significance. So the first day is known as Dhanteras, And Dhanteras is dedicated to the beginning of the new year by starting out trying to remove darkness, remove negativity, inviting good health and good deeds and prosperity into the home by cleaning and decorating and purchasing gifts and new items for friends and family and their own home. They decorate by using this beautiful rangolis, we call these. And if you do get a chance to come to the Hindu temple, there are beautiful rangolis outside of the temple that have been painted, and many, many celebrations of this in every home. In fact, every year we do a small one in front of my home as well. And I do it with colored powder. So you can freeform it. You can do it with powder. You can do it with rice. And then we use the lights around to decorate as well. And that happens on Choti Diwali. So on Choti Diwali, we put out, which is, or Naraka Chaturdashi, which is also a name for it, or Kali Chodas, which is another name for it. And why all these names? The names are actually associated with the regions because India is an incredibly diverse place. And so many regions of India speak different languages. There are in fact 22 different languages spoken in India and officially recognized by the Constitution. So we have different names for different things, but they are all, the same. They are Diwali. So we decorate our homes with these clay lamps, and we often use that day to give in charity and hope to share our prosperity. I'm going to show you some pictures of the actual Hindu temple here in central Indiana and also my house, which we light up every year for Diwali. So just very similar to Christmas lights. They don't look much different, but we use a lot of color and a lot of different reflections. And so really it's a big undertaking at the Hindu temple and a lot of fun. So the third day, the actual day of Diwali, we begin as a day of celebration. We want to, bathe and dress in new clothes and prepare amazing meals and foods and sweets. And we often will invite our friends and we get all of our things ready to light all of these beautiful clay lamps that we place around our homes and around the house. And nowadays we do it, with modern candles and easy ways to do it. And some people do it with the little electric lights. Because they don't want to deal with the actual fire hazards. But basically, we light everything up and we end the day with a puja or a religious worship honoring three main deities. And we'll talk a little bit about those three main deities. We honor Ganesha, and that is because Ganesha is honored at the beginning of any and all auspicious undertakings, whether it's a festival or a wedding ceremony or the opening of a new business, because Ganesha is seen as the representative of that great one that is the remover of obstacles. So we use that to remove any negativity or any obstacles in our path. And then we worship two goddesses that represent the importance of this holiday. One is Saraswati, and she is the goddess of knowledge. And as I said to you, the idea is knowledge triumphing over ignorance and goodness over evil and light over dark. And Lakshmi represents that prosperity and that generosity and that goodness that goes on when we get together as family and friends, and even for those who in our community are in need. So we do some fireworks, and it's really fun to do them. And the temple actually does these amazing fireworks every year. And so it's a lot of fun. And these are done outside of the temple grounds, and really just enjoy the time that we have together to celebrate. So you can see that's outside of the temple. We're going to move forward. The fourth day of Diwali celebration in many places is called Annakut, and that's in the north of India. And it's also called Padwa, or it's called Govardhan Puja. And it's basically a day where you go around and all of these fabulous sweets that we've made, we want to offer to everyone and to each other. And so we create these beautiful mountains of sweets that you can see here. And I'll show you a picture of one of the temples here in Indianapolis that hosts this. So you can see that right up here, that there's these beautiful sweets and everybody kind of lays those in front. And really is a great time to get together and to eat. So lots and lots of food, like everybody else's holidays, we love to eat as well. And this is a picture of the Swaminarayan Temple celebrating its holiday of Annakut. So that's my family. That's at one of the Diwali functions that we had many years ago. It just really was very pretty outside with all the lights, so that you could see behind us. And then the last day of Diwali is also about honoring family, but it's really about honoring the love between brother and sister. So it's the bond, it's called Bhai Dooj, the day of brothers and sisters. And it's common for siblings to get together on this day and to visit each other, whether they're old or young, and to spend that time, with each other sharing. So there is another festival that I mentioned in the slide called Rakhi, and Rakhi is also celebrated as a time for brothers and sisters to get together. The Hindu culture is very centered around family and the relationships and the importance of keeping those family bonds tight. And so we have a couple of festivals that honor that. So the light that we see all around us during the Diwali season really helps us to represent that beautiful light of the world that we all know, that we talk about in all of our different faiths, and the light of God and the light of honesty and compassion. And so we want to share that light and spread that light. So Diwali wishes are often, we send cards and we send gifts. And so they're often wishes for all of those good blessings to be upon all of us throughout the year. So I want to open it up. Again, that's my family celebrating another Diwali, actually doing a Diwali puja at a friend's house. And so I kind of want to open it up if there's the possibility to answer questions. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a moment and see if there are ways that maybe Arionne or the facilitators can help us with questions.
So first of all, let me say thank you to you, Dr. Joshi, for sharing so much. Super, super, super insightful. Talk about Hinduism in general. And thank you for that foundations moment. So we had, could learn some things so we could even understand what you're talking about. I forgot to give this instruction at the beginning. So in order to ask your questions, so we're shifting now to Q&A. So we got a nice amount of people in here, almost 60 people in the room. And hey, everybody, thank you again for tuning in. So now's your chance to ask questions about anything that you've heard, but you don't use the chat. You're going to use the Q&A portion. Some of you have been asking about LP in there. So go there to your Q&A and type your questions in, and we're going to have Dr. Joshi answer those live.
And before I answer that, I realized I actually skipped one of the sections that I wanted to talk about. So I'll just mention that one of the reasons I mentioned the Ramayana is the reason the holiday is celebrated on that day, that idea of good over evil and light over darkness, is the story of Diwali is the story of Rama, the king, who was meant to rule in truth and in justice. And during his time, he was supposed to be on the throne. And the story goes that, unfortunately, his stepmother did not wish him to ascend the throne, even though he was the rightful heir, and wanted his stepbrother to ascend the throne, and used the power of a promise, of a truth promise that her husband had given to her, that at any point in her life, because she had saved his life, she could ask for anything. And so she asked that her own son be installed as king. And so at that point, it became very upsetting to the rest of the family and obviously to the king. But Rama said, no, this is what you agreed to. And she also asked that he be banished to live in the forest for 14 years, thinking that by that time her son would have been able to, consolidate his power and do the right thing. Well, her son and Rama were very, very close friends and very close brothers, and he did not wish to take that from his brother. So even though he begged and pleaded for Rama to take the throne, he said, no, I have been asked to be banished for 14 years, and so I will fulfill my duty and be banished for 14 years. And his brother said, I will place your sandals on the throne, and I will only serve as caretaker, but I will never ascend the throne. And so the concept of truth and honesty and justice in this is part of what's setting the stage for the story. And when Rama returns after 14 years in the forest and having to undergo a great deal of trial and tribulation, there is this fabulous celebration of him returning to the city. And the members of the city light the streets of all the cities leading up to the castle with these beautiful lights, saying that the darkness has now ended and the light has returned to the kingdom. And so it is kind of that expression of lighting lamps that dispels that sort of ignorance, the idea that someone who shouldn't have been there would have ascended the throne, and yet the beauty of the fact that it all occurred the way that it should have. And so in the end, light, honesty, truth always wins, right? That's what we always say. So it was that concept that is the celebration of the light. So that was kind of the main idea of Diwali. And I sort of neglected that in the slides, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that. I think I was trying to just get through the presentation quickly. So I want to make sure that people knew that story.
You are doing fine. Thank you. That's actually super insightful. I love that story. Like, love that story. That's so cool. I never heard that before. So we do have one question, and it says, where does Diwali get its name?
Yes. So Diwali gets its name from the Sanskrit word for which Diwali is also called Deepavali. And that is the ancient Sanskrit term. It's been shortened to Diwali. But Deepavali means row of lights. And so that's where the holiday gets its name.
Awesome. Well, and I think you literally just broke it down too by telling us that story as well. The idea, like, it comes from that too. Like,
it comes from the story. And there are many other stories that are associated with the story of Diwali, depending on what area of India. The reason why I gave you that story is that is from the tradition that my family celebrates. And that was the story that we always told. And that's the story that we tell every year during Diwali. I think when we celebrate these beautiful, monumental religious holidays, right? They're almost always associated with a beautiful story.
Yes.
And so we share those beautiful stories at that time.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. Here come these questions. They are rolling in. Are there any other traditions that you didn't mention that take place during the celebration?
Yeah, there are. I mean, I think we talked about the cleaning of homes, the decorating, the lighting of lamps, the preparing of food, the giving of charity, the gathering of friends and family. So those are things that happen. We celebrate both at home and at the temple, as I showed you, both the pictures of my home and the pictures of the temple, because we also love to celebrate together in community. So oftentimes what happens is people begin the celebration at home. So we do our what we call Lakshmi Puja, or the celebration of the goddess of Lakshmi and Saraswati in the evening. And then we conclude that, leave all of our beautiful lights and lamps lit, and then we go to the temple to celebrate together with our community. And that's where we would be able to, set off fireworks and things like that.
Awesome. Okay. Looks like we got that one answered. So here's a really great question. It says, is there something that you would like teachers or professors to know about what they can do to support students celebrating Diwali?
That's a really great, Yeah, a really great question. I mean, I think the unfortunate thing for the celebration of Diwali is because it occurs at during the lunar calendar and the dates change every year, for the university to be aware of when the holiday is being celebrated. And because it really is a celebration that occurs in the evening, some people even, the very, if you're very religious, some people, like I said, in the morning will fast and then will eat in the evening. Those big, all that celebration of food happens later, but in the morning you're bathing and dressing and praying and sometimes fasting. And so it's important to, I think, be mindful of that as colleagues, professors, and fellow students, that you want to give them a little bit of space to do that, and maybe give them, if they are having the chance to celebrate with their families, and because of the time difference in India, if they're foreign students, maybe give them that chance to ask for an extension on something for a day, or give them that moment to really be able to honor their holiday, because it can really sometimes feel very lonely as a minority faith, sometimes to celebrate in the middle of everything. And it's interesting because there are often times when Diwali actually falls on Halloween or falls right around Halloween. And that becomes really difficult, right? Because we're trying to do something, it's all about dispelling darkness and bringing light and doing all this stuff. And then we're dealing with, the spooky skeletons and ghosts and death. And I got to tell you, I love Halloween. I decorate like crazy for Halloween, but I don't do it on the days that, if it actually coincides with Diwali, I have to put my decorations up, afterwards, or don't do it that year, just because I want to honor my own tradition as well. But I am a wicked Halloween person. So it's really hard for me to hold those two truths together. So sometimes it's important to just know that these other holidays exist and they have great value and great meaning for those who celebrate.
Okay, awesome. All right. Someone else says, is there a specific type of food that you eat during Diwali?
So lots and lots of different foods. So most celebratory foods like that we put on the table during Diwali, because they're all often offered first during our prayers, or actually we ask for a blessing over the food, is often vegetarian. So on that day, it's often considered more appropriate to eat a vegetarian meal, not unlike different times in the Christian calendar of Lent or giving up things, but, the vegetarian meal is important on that day. And it's often loaded with sweets. So if you have diabetes, it's a rough day. As a physician, I can say that. But yeah, it's loaded with sweets and lots of fun things to eat. And you saw mountains of those when I showed you those pictures. So yeah.
Yes, I was really taken aback by that. I'm like, how? Like, whoa, like I was overwhelmed. I mean, it truly was.
It is overwhelming.
Wow. Like, oh my gosh, that was so cool.
But it's a lot of fun. I mean, and people make some of their favorite dishes. And so we make different things. Like, so I'll often make a dish out of like paneer, or like that Indian cheese. So if you've gone to an Indian restaurant, you might have like a vegetable, sabji, which has like paneer in it, or a cheese dish. So I like to do that, and the breads, and then rice, like a pulao, and then some really nice, great like dals and things like that. And then I love to do sweets. So it's kind of a mix of all of those things, but yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
That was incredible. I couldn't even process. I'm like, whoa, that's all sweet stuff. I'm a sweet tooth person.
Well, and the great thing is that on those days, anyone who comes is going to get food, right? And if there's food left over, it gets given in charity. So people just take stuff with them, right? So you don't have, if you don't have anything to bring, that's okay, because there's a lot and you don't have to bring, you come and you take, that's okay too. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. I guess I'd like to go back to this idea of Diwali really being about good triumphing over evil, or light over darkness. Because as I was listening to you, and especially when you were telling the story, I think I was feeling inspired around that idea, because I think about the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
Lots of evil, right? Lots of craziness going on, injustice, people being mistreated, a lot of violence. And I just wonder, how does a celebration like Diwali, either encourage you, or how does it help you, think through all the complexities and the difficulties in our world, or does it? What is that?
Yeah,
Is there
no,
a connection there for you?
I think it does. I think for me, it always reminds me of that, that story of that there can be justice. People can do the right thing, right? We always think it's so hard. I see these signs all around now, be kind, as if that was so difficult to do. And I think, it's not that hard. I mean, people by their very nature, I really feel like we are naturally inclined to love. We are taught to hate. We are not naturally inclined to hate. So if we can kind of like get through the dirt and the stuff that covers us up and sort of makes us see these things in bad ways, we just go back to our essence, right? Which is truly, I believe it's all comes out of love. And so I really think that that's important. And that concept in Hinduism is definitely a deep one. That idea of love is super important. And so, and I don't think that's different in any faith, frankly. I think we all want to aspire to be good people, be kind people, care about one another. And yes, there are always people who are going to try to take advantage of a situation. But even in that, is there something that we can see that we can turn around and try to help that person see something more positive? I don't think it can happen for people maybe who have gone way too far down that path, that I certainly can't do it individually on my own. And then I just need to work against maybe what those people are doing in the world. But that's okay. I'm going to try to bring that light everywhere I can. And that's all I can do is focus on me and help others to maybe see that they have that natural light within them.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. So I see Bhumabal has raised his hand. He has a question to ask you. Go ahead, Bhumabal.
Hi, Dr. Joshi. So I'm from Nepal, and I'm from.
Oh yeah, great.
And I had this question, how long is Diwali celebrated in Nepal? In Nepal, in India. In Nepal, we celebrate it for 5 days.
Is it it's 5 days in India too? Yeah, it's 5 days. So it's very similar. And actually the Nepali celebrations are huge too. Lots of fireworks, right? It's big. So.
Yeah. And also I have one more question. So I know that Dussehra and Diwali happens within the same period, right? It's not that long, about 10 days of difference.
Yes, it's 10 days later. So the idea is, again, kind of that we've gone through this period of light, we've gone through this period of renewal. And, now we want to make sure we vanquish the negative within us, right? So we have to put that into place. So 10 days later is the Dussehra. And that is that, that celebration, which I think is also really fun. And maybe we can talk about that another time, because I know that wasn't.
Yeah, we can talk about it, because that's a big one too. But I just want to know, in India, is Diwali more famous, or Dussehra more famous?
I think in India, honestly, Diwali is probably the largest festival because it's celebrated all throughout India, north, south, east, west. And not that Dussehra is not celebrated, because it's the ultimate victory of Rama. So it's interesting, Arionne, and I'll kind of describe this to everybody else in the audience. When I talked about the Diwali being celebrated as Ram's return after kind of going through all these trials and tribulations, one of the trials and tribulations that he had to go through was that his wife was kidnapped by another king, who he had to then rescue her. And he gave him every opportunity. And in Hindu culture, this is also very important. Even when something is done to you that is wrong, or that you think is, you have to try to give that person every opportunity to rectify the situation, right? To make it right. Okay, you can return her. You can, send her back. We can send somebody to come get her. We can send you many messages of why you should not do this, because otherwise we're going to have to fight a war and bring her back. And we don't really want to put that upon you, right? We don't want to do these things. So how can we resolve this conflict? How can we renegotiate this? How can we, even if that person was completely in the wrong. It doesn't matter, right? You still have to try to give that person every opportunity. And that is what happened. Those were all the sort of trials and tribulations. And in the end, there had to be a battle fought to bring her home and rescue her. And so that occurred, and that victory is over this evil king who would not relinquish his position is the day of the Shera. So the Shera is that celebration. Yeah.
And listen, I got so into your answer, I stopped looking for if anybody else had questions.
No, that's okay. Sorry.
No, you're fine. No, it's so compelling. Like, I'm truly enjoying learning about all of this. It's super helpful. Well, let me ask you a follow-up question, Dr. Joshi. Yeah. Is there a particular year that you celebrated Diwali that sticks out to you for some particular memory, or one that you just really cherished, or a few? It didn't have to just be one.
Yeah, I think one that I really cherish and I will always remember is taking my children when they were young and my grandfather was still alive. And my grandmother unfortunately had passed at that point, but my grandfather was still alive. And I went to India and I was able to celebrate Diwali in India with my family. And I mean, it was amazing. It's like Christmas time here in the US, right? Everybody's in this mood. Everybody's excited. Everybody's celebrating. And that's really what Diwali is like in India. And having been born and raised in the United States, and I had gone back to India many times, but because of schedules and things like that, I usually went in the summer, which was oppressively hot where I was living. But it was not, I didn't really get a chance to go during my school years to celebrate Diwali because it was always in the middle of school. And so you couldn't just leave and go. Right. Although now I think parents are a little more, I don't know, they're more lenient. They want to grab the kids out of school and we're giving them a cultural experience. But, my parents were immigrants in the 60s and that was none of that. It was go to school, get an education, and don't skip school. And if you're sick, you're going to school sick and it doesn't matter, which is, and that's kind of how it was. But I think for me to be able to go and celebrate that with my children and really experience it in all of its richness was just a tremendous. And then we've gone back since, but my grandfather has passed. And I think that one was just super special to me.
So I have like a follow-up question, Dr. Joshi.
Yeah.
I know you have stayed in the United States for long. So what's the difference between celebrating in India and celebrating in the United States?
Oh, it's really like, honestly, the difference between what happens at Christmas here in the United States. It is like, there's lights everywhere. There's people singing songs. There's joy. There's happiness. There's all this like, giving gifts and wanting to buy stuff for people and wanting to do stuff for people and making sweets and eating way too much chocolate and all of that good stuff. Right. So it's exactly what happens in India at that time. So it's so amazing when it happens in India. But here, the celebration of Diwali is, unfortunately, we fit it in between all of the other things. I mean, until very recently, a lot of times, and this year I'm going back again to India to celebrate Diwali, but it's been a long time since I've been able to do that. But otherwise, oftentimes I wouldn't even take the day off, right? I'm a physician, I'm seeing patients, I'm practicing. So I would be rushing and I'd run home and I'd make something and I'd get everybody dressed. And then we'd do our, celebration. We'd run to the temple and then we're exhausted the next day and let's go to school and, shoving the kids off to school. And it just was a fit in. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference. And a holiday that's that significant really shouldn't be a fit in.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a fit in. I learned that I think later. And so now I do take the day, I do take the time. I say, I owe myself that. And so I'll do that. But I think, as immigrants, when my parents came, it's an immigrant experience, right? We make the least amount of waves. We keep our head down. We don't say a lot. We don't do a lot. We kind of try to make it all work. And that's not right. I don't think that it doesn't mean that you should have to lose that part of yourself. I'm not saying we have to make the whole country celebrate Diwali. I'm not suggesting that we do that, but it would be nice to sort of say, hey, we'll give you your special holiday. If you want to take it off, that's a personal day. You can do that, right? There's no harm in doing those things. We take personal days, Lord knows, for all kinds of other silly reasons. Maybe we can take it for this. So
I love that. I mean, what would that mean to be part of an institution or community that made space for that? How would that make you feel? What would that mean to you?
I think it would feel great. I think you would just feel acknowledged. You would feel seen. You would feel heard, right? And isn't that ultimately what everybody wants, right? No matter whether you belong to a majority group or a minority group, everyone wants to feel heard and loved and safe and cared for. And so I think that that's not, I don't think it's a lot to ask. I think you can do it. And like I said, I'm not saying that we tell everybody that, they have to celebrate Diwali, but it is happening. And I think it's happening more now than it certainly did when I grew up. I mean, when I grew up, nobody had ever heard of Diwali. And maybe some people on this call still haven't heard of Diwali. That's fine. But now, in New York, Diwali is huge in New York now. I mean, it's a big celebration. I mean, the Empire State Building gets lit up and stuff happens and there's firework displays over the Hudson. And, now we're doing things because there's a large enough group of people to say, hey, this is a fun thing. And you know what? Come along, because who doesn't like fireworks and food? I mean, what? I don't know. I know it's not great for the environment. So all of you who are going to yell at me later about that, go ahead and do that. That's fine. But it's you want to have fun, right? So it's inviting your friends and your neighbors and people who may not have ever experienced it to enjoy it. Anytime I've ever invited somebody, they have had a blast. I mean, it's like me going to Irish Fest. I have a ball when I go down there. I enjoy it. So, I mean, I feel like we can celebrate each other beautifully and not have to, feel like, oh, if I celebrate you, that means that I am, saying something less about me. There's room. There's lots of room. Right. It's okay.
Right, which is in part why we're doing this series, right? To just, first of all, raise awareness and then to be thoughtful about what does it mean to be more inclusive and to create more space for everybody that's a part of our community to feel acknowledged and seen and safe and valued. I think that's awesome. I had another follow-up question, but it just left me. We'll see if it comes back. Did you have another follow-up?
I think I can ask one question. This is a fun question, Dr. Joshi. So you talked about sweets, right? And we have a lot of sweets. What is your favorite sweet that you
Oh my God. All right. So I think honestly, I have a really bad sweet tooth. So for me to pick a favorite is super hard. But I would say, I love a really good ras malai. If you can make me a really good ras malai, I'm very happy with that. And a ras malai, for people who don't know, is a milk-based sweet where you take milk and you actually turn it into almost like a soft cheese. And then you have it has lots of cardamom and rose and all kinds of beautiful essences. And then you boil it again in more milk and sugar. And so it's just loaded with milk and sugar. It's just awesome. So that's my favorite.
So it looks like you'll be looking forward to that very soon.
Oh yeah, it's hard to make, so it's not easy to make. It's kind of a tougher sweet to make, I think, anyway. But what's your favorite sweet?
I think I love ras malai.
Awesome.
But I think I love rasgulla too.
Oh yeah. Rasgulla is great too. So that's another one that's also a milk-based sweet, but that's a little harder in its consistency. And it is not boiled in milk again. It is boiled in sugar syrup. So it's just dripping with sugar. So it's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, guys, we give you a few more minutes, not even a few more minutes, a few more seconds. If there's any other burning questions you want to ask Dr. Joshi before we head out. This has been so enlightening. We have learned a lot tonight. I certainly have, about Diwali. And it's one thing, you can read stuff, you know what I'm saying, and try to learn about different things, but it's something else to hear someone else's experience, right? And for it to sound more personal and for someone to bring that, joy and excitement and talking about not only their faith, but something like this that means a lot to them within the practice of their faith.
So there was a
Okay,
question about
yeah.
how to not make it intimidating or maybe come to the temple, or how do you learn more about Diwali? So there are lots of, I think talk to your fellow students who may celebrate Diwali. I think that's a really not intimidating way. You're all students, you're all the same age, you're all at UIndy, you're all kind, good, decent people. So I think that might be a really good way to engage and ask that question. But I think Boomy, if you have a better answer to that, please, give me one.
I mean, Dr. Joshi, I have been in States for like 3 years. It's hardly been like I have been outside, but I think one question that I also had in mind was that. So, are you from Indy?
I am actually originally from New Jersey, but I'm now considered a native Hoosier because I've been here
Oh, okay.
25 years. So I guess I get to get called a Hoosier at a quarter century. So.
Okay. So I was gonna ask. So I was gonna ask you this question: like, what is the place for like people like us, like who are really curious to learn about Diwali here, to like visit places, because like that would be a good way to learn about this.
Yeah, I would say come to the temple. If you can make it over to the east side, to the Hindu temple of central Indiana to celebrate, I think you'll enjoy the celebration. And nobody is the beauty of Hinduism is there's no Hindu card, right? There's no registration. There's no something you wear around your neck or on your head or on your arm that says you're a Hindu, right? You show up. You can be a visitor, you can be a Hindu, you can be a non-Hindu. It doesn't matter. Everybody is welcome. The Hindu temple is an open place for people to come and visit. And we get lots of people who come and visit. So it shouldn't feel overwhelming. I know sometimes you can feel, oh, I might be the only one, but I think that's how you open yourself up to good experiences, right? If you never travel out of the small town that you were born in, you'll never have an experience that may be meaningful to you. And I was born in a small town in New Jersey. I could have stayed there, but I didn't. And here I am, and I've learned all about Hoosier hospitality, and I've had a great time, living in Indiana. But I think it's important for people to feel comfortable coming. And that's what I would recommend. I would say come to the temple if you wish. If you think a holiday is too overwhelming, there's actually, the temple is open every weekday morning and evening. And then it's open on the weekends. And we now have an individual audio guided iPad tour. I'm so sorry. I'm going to
Okay.
audio guided iPad tour that you can take. I think it's $5. So now I think with inflation, less than a cup of Starbucks coffee. And you can take a 1-hour tour that will give you kind of the understanding of the temple and how it was built and the basics of Hinduism, and it will give you an understanding of all the different deities. And it's just a lovely way to experience, especially if you're shy and you don't want to talk to anyone else. You can put your headphones on, have your iPad in front of you, and you have an official, easy way to walk around the temple without feeling embarrassed or, insecure.
And also, like, I would like to add something to Dr. Joshi. So Hinduism and Buddhism is more like a different kind of religion. It's not like a Christianity or like Islam, or even like, I don't know about Jewish, but it's not like those. So like the thing we celebrate is not a celebration of a festival. It's more like a party. So like when you come to our places, it's just like you hang out with us, you enjoy, and you like just eat and you just go. You don't like really have a worship thing that is there in our
You don't
festival.
have to participate in it.
Celebration.
Yeah, there is a worship that goes on, obviously, at the temple, but you don't have to participate in it to come. There are people who come, sort of bow their head for 2 seconds and run out the door and grab food. It's true. I mean, that's fine. There's no enforcement. You're right. There's no kind of like, oh, you have to sit through the whole service in order to get the food at the end. So it's okay. You can come and have whatever, and there's food served the whole night. So it's not a problem.
I feel like what I'm hearing is we can go.
That's what
I'm hearing. I'm here. We can go. We've learned about Diwali tonight. I think we've heard we can go. And this year is October 24th. Is that right?
Yes, it's October 24th. And if you want to come to the temple, I would encourage you to look at the Hindu Temple of Central Indiana's, just the website, just to have the details on what timings and like all of that. And, it sounds like you can pick up Boomy and take him, because he'll eat all those sweets with you. So he'll be really happy to do that.
He will not be alone, let me tell you. I'm actually going to quickly throw that in the chat so people can get the website if they want.
And in fact, like I said, there are different holidays too. I mean, this is Hindu holiday season, so it begins Monday. Like, we start all of our holidays Monday, and it runs through the November, and then basically we go on hiatus. So it's nice, because if you want to just holiday all year, pick a religion, pick a place, and keep partying all year. Enjoy yourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. Enjoy all different holidays, experience different things, and take away from it what you want. And there's no,
this is awesome. Pressure. Because, we can enjoy with our Hindu friends for a while. And then by the time that's over, is with Dussehra, right?
Yeah.
What you were saying. And what day is that this year?
I think Dussehra, actually, there's some festivals. I'm going to check the dates for you, because it's the lunar calendar. I don't always remember myself.
No,
actually, sorry, Dussehra. No, this year, Dussehra. So, yeah, Dussehra is actually... Oftentimes Dussehra ends Dussehra is before Diwali this year. Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
I think it is off. I think I said that backwards. Dussehra is before Diwali. Yeah. So you vanquish that, and then you celebrate the light. I had that backwards. Okay. I'm so sorry. I get it wrong. But there is a festival after Diwali that's actually, right? It's after Diwali briefly. And I think that might be the holiday of, I think there's Gita Jayanti that comes in December, really early December. But I'll have to look at that calendar again, because they kind of all run together. And sometimes Diwali is early in the year, and sometimes it's later in the year. But actually, Dussehra comes first and then Diwali. So that was my mistake. But so you're celebrating Dussehra, then you're celebrating Diwali. And then Diwali there's some... It really kind of ends the major holiday season, and then there's some small things that occur after that. But you'll end with the big Diwali. So Navratri starts now, and then Dussehra, and then Diwali, and then we're done. Then you can celebrate Christmas.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was saying. And then, all of that. And the New Year in the whole nine. So I like this.
Just keep going.
That's awesome. Someone is asking if you could watch. I think if you're asking if you could watch the presentation later, this is being recorded tonight. We will soon then upload the video to the UIndy Chapel YouTube page is the plan. Of course, if you had to be here for the whole thing in order to get your LP credit. You can't watch the video later and get your LP credit. So those are two different things. But yes, we are going to post this video so that people can come back and catch the replay and learn and get all the good information that Dr. Joshi has shared with us tonight. And so I think it's a good time to say thank you so much. This has been fantastic. We definitely appreciated all the insight you shared, but also appreciated the dialogue. I think it's fair to say it's been good to talk and learn a lot more. And so this is important for our community, UIndy, to know that for our Hindu friends, this is starting their holiday season. That's such a cool thing to know. So starting next week, you said Monday, right?
Yes, Monday. Monday starts Navratri, and Navratri is a 9-night celebration. Like I said, we don't do anything in one day.
Wow.
So we do awesome. Celebration. Yeah, Navratri is 9 nights of celebration of the goddess. So for all of my women out there, this is your power. This is your chance to celebrate that. So yes.
Look at Boom Bob. Oh, that's awesome. So, that's actually good for us to know, and certainly good for faculty and staff to know in support of our students as well. So thank you again, Dr. Joshi. I know you guys can't clap for or throw anything up, but just send some good energy and positive vibes. And let's be grateful for her sharing with us tonight. representing the Hindu Temple of Central Indiana. Remember, Diwali is coming up October 24th this year. It moves from year to year, so next year it'll probably be on a different day. But now you've learned about it, and you will have some insight about it the next time you hear Diwali, hear that name. So thank you again for coming out tonight, all of you.
Good luck to all of you as students with all of your midterms, exams, things that are coming up. I wish you all the best. So hopefully, things will, as those come up, those go well for you during this first semester.